Hello and welcome back to the Insider series. We are very lucky to have an amazing guest today, Dan Garber, going to be talking us all through the music industry. Now, most artists don't fail because their music isn't good. They fail because they made the wrong decisions at the wrong time, usually because no one's really actually explained how it works. Today isn't about hacks. It's not about chasing a label. It's about understanding what support exists and to make really, really good decisions. Dan's worked on both sides for his artists, moving them forward and getting it done. So hopefully you leave tonight with a clearer sense of what you've been doing. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. We're going to go through some questions now, and then the artists will join in as well. The first question I kind of want to go, a lot of artists feel like they're supposed to do everything themselves. At what point does DIY actually become unsustainable in your opinion?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. And I think it's 10 years anniversary, right?
It is in February.
Yeah. So many happy returns. Yes. So I work with a lot of artists and I try to help encourage that DIY sort of theme and approach. But I think when it becomes unsustainable is basically when the admin essentially takes over the creativity. So to be an artist, you have to be creative. And if the kind of logistics, the strategy, the implementation, the admin side of it takes over and takes more of your time and takes more of your brain space up, that's not a good place to be in. And you need to start looking about where you can get help from. Also, I suppose this kind of goes in line with any sort of work that you're involved in is when things start to feel reactive rather than proactive. So if you're kind of relying on something happening and then you're kind of acting upon that rather than having a clear kind of idea of what you want to do. And the other thing that I really focus on, I look at mental health quite a lot as well. And I think if you're starting to feel overly stressed and burnt out, and that makes it really challenging to make good decisions. And you start guessing and second guessing yourself. And also, you need to look out for burnout in general. Anyway, it's a really serious thing. So I think those are the kind of places that you kind of the DIY system seems to be a bit unsustainable, really.
100%. And it's not a topic that people talk about too much, as well as the mental health side as well. So I'm really glad we're bringing it up now. A lot of musicians, no matter what stage they're in, will go, I need a manager, I need a label, I need this industry connection. What do you think is the biggest myth you see about this?
That as soon as you get a manager, you're just going to be an overnight success. Um, and I quite like. I think someone did a study on the Grammys, and all the kind of breakthrough artists had been going for like 10 years. So I think having a manager or a label making you an overnight success that's a myth. Also, that a label will help kind of give you direction or kind of get you those playlists or all this kind of stuff. It's not as clear cut and as simple as that. It's not like a magic bullet, because you kind of need to have that connection with your audience first. And also that things will go quicker. I don't necessarily think things will go quicker. You're still kind of need to take that step and that breath, and that beat. But it does, obviously, having a team around you really does kind of amp things up a little bit. But they essentially amplify what you're working on already, and they sort of invest in you when the momentum's already going, and they help kind of build that consistency and continuity. But they're not gonna be the silver bullet, basically.
I completely agree. And it's so funny, isn't it? Like I see Rag and Bone Man win Best Newcomer. He's in his late 30s. I see
Yeah.
Lowly people are like, oh, she's an overnight success, but she's been releasing music for over 10 years. So it's really yeah, it's an interesting point of view. I have to agree. How should an emerging artist think about building a team? Like, in your opinion, Dan, what order should things come in?
Yeah. Okay. So I think you need to be clear on your goals. You know, you need to be very have lots of objectives of what it is that you want to achieve with your career, and make that bespoke and unique for yourself. Don't copy anyone else's. Then you need a strategy for like what support you want and when you need it. Then you need to kind of look at distribution and admin support, and perhaps who you can create and collaborate with. So whether that's producers, other songwriters, or maybe that's something you haven't thought about, like a musical director who can help the whole live performance. And then, management and labels can come into it at that point. I think historically, a lot of artists, first of all, connect with a lawyer, and then a lawyer will help them kind of be introduced to managers. And then from that point, managers look for labels and all this kind of stuff. But to be really, really honest, I think in today's age, all these things are kind of being a bit blurred. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it, but it's just about being aware of when the right time to kind of have those partners involved, right? Like, just to put it down simply for manager, a manager earns commission most of the time on what you're bringing in or what they can help you bring in. Realistically, it's a music business, and a manager needs to survive as well. So it's very, very unlikely a manager is going to come on board until you're starting to earn some revenue, whatever that looks like. But they need to see that there's something there.
Absolutely. And for those artists that aren't at that level yet, is it possible to get professional level advice without giving up control or percentages? I think it's something that's really big in 2026 is people like, I don't want to give up my music rights. I want to keep in control. So do you think it's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. There was the MMF, which is the Music Managers Forum, which is an organization which looks after over 1,500 managers in the UK. They did a study at the end of last year to see where the income and where the majority of managers are kind of earning from. And only 50% of managers earn from commission-based deals. 50% earn from sort of consultancy or mentoring or coaching, where you kind of either pay a retainer or you pay for a service, where you get help with strategy and decision makings or guidance from the experience that they have, or coaching, sort of where you kind of, there's sort of leading questions for you to kind of discover stuff yourself. I personally, like, not to promote myself too much, but I have built a sort of hybrid of coaching, consultancy, and mentoring to sort of help people on a hourly basis, whether that's weekly or monthly. And I know for a fact there's lots of other managers who've got their own systems, or there's other people that sell services where they've got a sort of ready-made copy and paste pack for you to kind of follow a participant, for instance. So there's definitely a lot of services out there where you can kind of get help and pay for what you can afford or what you need, and then kind of, there's no commitments, there's no rights exchange, there's nothing like that. So yeah, there's definitely lots of support out there for sure.
Absolutely.
There's also like stuff like this is really important and really valuable. Music conferences, and also, there's programs like Help Musicians, who do Co-Pilot, which is a mentoring session with experienced managers as well. So there's lots of different things out there for sure.
Absolutely. And, there is support out there, and it's really good to talk to people, get involved, stuff like this. Learning, like education really can be the key in finding that right person to just unlock the door in our industry. There's a lot of gatekeepers that you can get in by being face to face as much as possible. Dan, in your position, what are the red flags when artists rush into working with someone too early?
They're like, I've heard of a lot of people who want to sign contracts straight away, both managers and artists. I think there's red flags on both sides.
Yeah.
I would be concerned about that. I have always been taught, and also kind of my kind of application is to work with an artist for at least 6 months before any sort of contracts are signed. Basically, making sure that you get to know each other, each ways of work, and making sure that the manager can add value to you. I think that's really, really important. And yeah, I think I definitely don't sign too fast and asking for a percentage without adding value, and also kind of saying like, oh, we'll figure it out later. We're kind of like, don't worry about that now. We're just focus on this. I think if it feels rushed, maybe give a little bit of a pause and kind of review your options. Also, I would say it's good practice to sort of, as an artist, sort of interview a few managers.
Yep.
Yeah, I would like, even if you've got your eyes set on one or someone's really, really key, just talk to a few managers, see the different approaches that they make, and help you make your kind of, yeah, sure you're making the right decision. But also, nothing's forever either. So don't worry if you feel that you're in the wrong relationship or partnership. It can end. You know, it doesn't need to be forever. So yeah.
I always say, Danny, like, if they're really good at what they do, you should be able to speak to other artists they've worked with before and just get like,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah, I always say, look, go and speak to people they've worked with and just ask what's the worst that can happen before jumping in. Because you do see artists, they get their first deal and it's just straight away they sign. It's like, especially with labels, it's like their first deal's probably not their best and you can definitely negotiate. A big question to the industry at the moment, Danny, was, where does money realistically come from for emerging artists today and where doesn't it? Because from where I'm sat, you look at these big stats of how much money the music industry makes, and you flip the coin, you see Spotify paying 0.003p a stream. So for somewhere in your position, yeah, where does that money realistic come from for an emerging artist?
I would say what I try to do is try to work out what the artist can do that's got a history of decent revenue streams. So, for instance, with some of my artists, sync is a synchronization, putting music to TV shows, adverts, films, is a really kind of lucrative area, but it's can be challenging for a lot of artists because sometimes it's not just like my song is very good for sync, or I know this music supervisor, or I know this kind of process. Sometimes you have to write bespoke compositions directly for sync. So, for instance, that could be one way to do it. It doesn't have to be about your artist project. It can be using your skill set for something else. Live shows or DJing can often be kind of a good way to earn some money. The other thing as well is kind of flip it on its head and think about the stuff that you've learned and perhaps do some teaching or some workshops for other emerging artists. And direct fan support. I know that it's got a lot of stigma attached to it, but I really think that is the future. I really think that whether you're kind of
Dan, I absolutely agree. I'm screaming it from the rooftops, and I feel like a lot of artists might go, "Oh, Josh, but is it gonna ruin my creative integrity?" But I always see it as if you're gonna build a sustainable career, you have to monetize so you can keep doing what you love. And I think, I see artists with 1 million followers, and then I see an artist with 1,000 followers, but highly engaged, highly active, buying the subscriptions, trying to go to like fan meetups. So for me, that's so much more important, that community feel. Have you seen the same over the last couple of years?
there's some artists with really small audiences and really small streams who are making more money than an artist who has loads because they know how to engage with their fan base. They know what their fan base wants. They might give away free CDs but charge for packaging, posters of packaging. They might play a gig in a living room. They might kind of be on Patreon and give behind the scenes stuff. They might give out lyric sheets. And I definitely think I agree that you don't have to be massive. You just have to be able to kind of understand your audience and know what they want and engage with it and make it feel authentic and genuine. You have to do what's right for you, as well. You might be into, I don't know, some niche thing, that only you're into. You might be an artist and might be able to sell your art to them, or you might be a poet and be able to sell your poems. Whatever it is, I definitely think there's a decent way to monetize that. And I don't think it's using your fans either, which a lot of people think. You don't want to beg. You don't want to seem like you're begging. But I think a lot of fans want to help. And I think the reason why I say it's the future is we look at things like the trends that are happening on Spotify, for instance, and people leaving Spotify, not just artists, but fans. And they might then look to use that £10 a month to support artists instead of directly paying for streaming. And I think hand in hand with that is something that we don't really think about because we're such in the streaming mindset. Before we started paying £10 a month for streaming, the average consumer would spend about £20 a year on music. And then streaming kind of snuck in there, and we then, multiplied it to £120 a year. So it's a huge difference. And I think we think that music has been devalued, but I think when we see streaming kind of fall by the wayside a bit and people want to support artists more authentically and creatively, I think there's room for that.
100%. It's such a good point to make. Daniel, at what point should I start treating their project like a business, even if it still feels small? Because a lot of artists go to me and they go, Josh, look at LMS UK, look how great is this and that. And I go, I didn't pay myself for 5 years. We didn't have any money to do so. And it's built into something that has worth, luckily, touch wood, and we support artists and it feels authentic and it's all about progressing musicians. I say to musicians, you've got to think like that as well. So yeah, from your point of view, what point should I start treating their project like a business?
I have two sort of answers for this. I think, yeah, because I'm conflicted. With my manager hat on, I'm like straight away, as I said before, it's the music business. If you want to have a career, then you need to start thinking about it like a proper business. You need to think about strategy, timelines, business plans. If you kind of apply for funding, they want to see account sheets and kind of future revenue projections and everything like that. So I would say train yourself straight away and start thinking of it like a business. If I've got my creative artist hat on, I'd say like chill. Just make the music, enjoy the process. When money starts to come in, when your time and energy costs rise, and when other people start to get involved, that's when you start thinking of a business. So I'm in two minds. I don't know what you feel.
Yeah, I think that if you're under lots of pressure, you're not going to produce your best work creatively, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But you want to make this sustainable. You want to make a career. We're all about progression here at LMS UK. At some point, you have to make the jump. I did in my business. All my musicians did. So yeah, and everyone's different. Everyone's on their own route. Daniel, some of your expertise, looking back, what do you wish someone had explained to you earlier in your career?
I think like we said before, it's an overnight success looks like an overnight success, but it takes 10 years. So I think slow progress is still progress. I think there's that theory of if you improve and progress 1% each day, then that's better than trying to do 100% and then burn out. So I think clarity as well is really, really important. Being very clear on what you want to achieve and what your kind of brand is, what your kind of USP is to an audience. But also allow yourself to kind of change that. Be fluid.
Well, isn't it? It does evolve. It's like things come up.
Yeah, and it's not linear. It might, and so it's just be continuous. Be there. Show up for yourself and kind of keep going. Basically.
If an artist is feeling overwhelmed right now, what's the first single step you suggest? And I love breaking it down to that level. Like I said, 1%. What's the step? What's the next thing?
First of all, stop adding anything else to it. Like, so just, if you're in the middle of shit and you're thinking about kind of a music video or a kind of like social media or music or whatever it is, you focus on one thing, take a step back and think about what I'm trying to build, and what's my next decision to make. Just take a step back and go one step at a time and ignore everything else.
I love that. That's absolutely brilliant advice. I want to come to you, Daniel. And if there's people here that have really enjoyed this webinar, really enjoyed kind of what we've said and come across, for your consultancy, what's it for? Who should probably need it? And what does that first session really look like? What does an artist usually get to focus on?
The first section is really fun. Like, I really, really like it. I go through a list of questions that basically tries to do exactly what we've talked about, map out exactly what their career goals are and ambitions, and also what's unique about them, what they bring to the music industry, what their kind of USP is, how they kind of want to build. And then what's really interesting is I normally kind of, after a few months, go back to that and ask the same questions again and see the expression on their face when I read back what they first said, because it's so different. They start to think much bigger picture and they start to really understand what they're about. And it's really, really good. But who's it for? Honestly, it's for everyone. I work with brand new artists and I work with established artists who have had managers previously, but for one reason or another don't anymore. I also work with managers as well, which I really, really enjoy. But I just help artists make decisions and have some clarity on what they're doing, and that mixture of the consultancy, which is basically sort of me having a set task, and helping the artist achieve something through strategy, and then the mentoring, which is me kind of taking an understanding of the experience that I have and implementing it to their situation. And then the coaching, which is kind of literally leading questions so that they can build that clarity to themselves. And that light bulb moment when they're like, that's what I've been looking for, and they got it in themselves already, but sometimes they just need that person to bounce ideas off. And that's what I'm here for.
I love that. What brilliant advice that is. I've had some questions come from the Discord. We are running out of time, Daniel, so I'm just going to pick my favorite.
Cool.
I know, as I said, where do you feel like artists get confused about being busy without actually moving forward? So, yeah, they're asking if there's a big difference. What do you see as a manager in that? What's the difference between being busy and actually moving forward?
I think that's really interesting. And I think, again, it's something that as a manager, I've experienced as well. I think you can often feel that you're doing everything, and because you're doing everything, that means you're progressing and you're doing well, but it's not the case. And I think sometimes delegation, if you have teams around you or you're able to get support, that might, if you're very early stages, that might be friends or whoever it is. But being busy doesn't always mean having success or progression. I think there's that 80-20 rule, where like 20% of the work that you put out there will bring back 80% of the revenue, for instance. And then that 80% of work that you do, you might get distracted by and put all your focus into, but that you could probably leave that alone and nothing else will change. It won't affect you. The 20% is the bit that's really going to help the progression. So try and take a step back and think about what it is that you're doing, and make sure the tasks that you've laid out for yourself are actually going to move the needle.
Fantastic. Well, guys, if you take anything from tonight, let it be this. Most artists don't need more pressure. They need clarity, timing, and fewer bad decisions. Daniel is absolutely ace at this. If you want to get in contact with Dan, if you want to get some consultancy done, I highly recommend it. Dan, thanks for coming through the noise and explaining what support actually looks like without the myths. And for anyone that's listening at home, make sure you stay close to this community, because clarity compounds. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to get in contact?
Taperec.com, TAPEREC.com.
Go and do it, guys. You will not be disappointed. Dan, thank you for coming on to the
Thanks so much for having me. That was